Assalamualaikum and good afternoon to all who have come to see this forum. Today's discussion topic is the effectiveness of online learning as a method of education. Online learning, as we all know, is also referred to as web-based learning. Online learning can also be defined as a specific mode of attendance for a course or program of study in which students rarely or never meet face-to-face and have no access to on-campus educational facilities because they study online. This is a very interesting topic and I'd like to introduce our panels for today so that we can discuss it further. From my right is Professor Safirul bin Muhammad Yusof from Ministry of Education. Next to Professor Safirul is Dr. Nur Sharina binti Mohammed Hussaini from Faculty of Health Science UKM, following by Professor Rajia binti Abdul Rahim from Ministry of Higher Education. And the last we have Dr. Hasnida binti Abdul Talib, counselor from University Technology Mara. We start from Professor Safirul first. What do you think about online learning?
Okay, thank you for our moderator. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. To be open introduction in our forum topic today, and good evening to our panelists and audio. Also, before we start to our discussion, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Safirul bin Muhammad Yusof. I'm from Ministry of Education. Today's topic is for our presentation is online learning is an effective educational method, which is that the key point is effectiveness of online learning beyond the significant difference and usual horizon. Which is the point I positively agree is students can learn their own time and space to allow the student to design their own learning experience, which is their own space according to their own interest and learning preference. First, I begin by explaining why I agree with this point is, number one, the placing of in-one-person corporate learning solution has been a gatekeeper for non-traditional learner, like those with family caretaking responsibility or varied learning ability. After that, I move on to my next point to be strongly attached is, for more systematic analysis by Navarro and Shoemaker 2000, found that the student learning outcome for online learner were as good as better than traditional learner, regardless of background characteristic. And there the student was greatly satisfied with online learning. But individualized instruction adjusts the pace of learning to meet the need of the individual student, and differentiate instruction draw from variety of instructional approach to meet student need. Also personalized learning provide content to direct to individual student interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Safirul. What about you, Dr. Sharina? Do you think online learning is the effective method of education?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Moderator. First of all, I'm so glad to be one of the guests here. As what Professor Safirul said just now, I see it is ineffective to implement online learning as a method of education. One of the reason is the delivery of online learning is limited to a certain fields only. Calculation and science subjects that include aspect of clarifications, interpretations, as well as explanations cannot be properly studied through online learning. Same goes to special education for students with disabilities that need special learning process, which is difficult to deliver through remote learning. For instance, vocational programs characterized by work placements have been negatively affected during the lockdown period. As work placements are no longer possible in most cases and hands-on training cannot easily be delivered online, most programs have simply been interrupted. If educators use online education as teaching methods, students will find it challenging to comprehend these subjects. Face-to-face or traditional learning methods are more effective and relevant where there is the need to develop practical skills.
Thank you, Dr. Sharina. Thank you, Dr. Sharina. From your explanation, you are strongly disagree that online learning is an effective method of education. Prof. Raja, what do you think, Prof?
Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Thank you, Ms. Moderator. A very interesting topic in line with the COVID epidemic in our country. Thanks God, we in the stream of education are always sensitive to the learning method of our natural children. Alright, back to our forum. I agree with virtual learning at this time, where everyone is aware that the epidemic has affected the source of income and disrupt the country economic system. So online learning is the most effective way to prevent our students from dropping out of knowledge. Why did I say that? Because first, learning online is cost effective due to the rising cost of post-secondary and undergraduate education. Students can use more than one method to reduce the cost of online education, including no exercise room and accommodation fees when studying online from home, and also not having to pay post-service not used by students. Such as center, many school and educators believe that online learning can be an effective tool in combat the rising cost of post-secondary education by spreading class costs over the dividing cost by 10 of 100 of thousand of student residents. We will study a proven in module Bowen 2030, Betley Goli 2014, Jainha 2000, Colin and 2014, and Tucker in 2007. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I want to interrupt a little. Just now, Professor Rajia said learning online is cost effective, but I'm not agree with this point because during online learning, some students face financial constraint to allocate for IT equipment and internet data purchase. Student needs to subscribe to the internet with the big data, compare the basic internet. We can see this from a survey on students' readiness towards online learning by University Sultan Zainal Abidin. 79.3% indicates that they might face internet problem, either low internet speed or no Wi-Fi connection at all. And 8.9% indicates also admit that they face a technical problem from lack of IT equipment, especially the laptop or computer and so on. This is a research done by University Sultan Zainal Abidin. Thank you, and back to you, Mrs. Moderator.
Okay, Doctor, can we continue a little longer? So, Doctor, what is your view on effectiveness of online learning?
Thank you again, Ms. Moderator. For me, actually, I do not agree that online learning is effective. One of the issues is about the technology. Nowadays, we're still facing limited source of material, internet access and coverage. We can see that some students, especially from a rural area, may not have easy access to a computer and an internet connection. And others who do have the necessary equipment are unsure how to utilize it. This is due to the fact that many students are computer illiterate, which will cause them to be frustrated with online education. Hence, they feel difficult to understand the subject. Based on what I have read on Asian Journal of University Education, titled Online Learning Readiness Among University Students in Malaysia amidst COVID-19 in 2020, more than half of their respondents indicates that if given a choice, they do not want to continue with online learning in the future. Thank you, Ms. Moderator.
Okay, before we go to the next point, I would like to explaining a bit by keeping the point for Dr. Hasnida previous one. Doctor say the issues of the technology is limited sources of such as material, access, or some coverage. But I strongly refute that the statement because my point is due to the growth and spread of cheaper and more user-friendly computer technology and software, such as smartphone, portable, computer, Microsoft, and etc. The use of the internet by students has increasingly dramatically, even in reality. It has brought a very open approach on learning, where students are no longer depending on the instructor or textbook as their only sources of information. In fact, you can find many explanations, and we can clearly see the effects of introducing internet technology into school can have significant effects on performance of schools. There be an actual change in educational approach to be summarized. Because of this, we can support this motion, such as example, the internet allow cost-effective to in accessing by using both teaching and learning information resources, collaborative and distant education more than it's ever been imagined.
That was entirely good explaining. Thank you, Prof. We go to the next. How about you, Dr. Sharina? Any kind of point you can discuss?
Okay, I would like to express on lack of communication with less interaction between learners and educators, which face difficulties to adapt on online learning. As we look into this situation, learners in online education experience reflection, isolation, and a lack of engagement with their instructors or lecturers. They need instant feedback and immediate response during learning process. Students may experience confusion, anxiety, and frustration due to lack of prompt or clear feedback from their lecturers, or can easily distracted with other websites or social media due to unable to stay focused on screen for a long period. This will result in lack of discipline and low motivation due to delayed and ineffective feedback, can add burden to learners who are struggling with the isolation and the remoteness nature of distance learning. They also convey their restlessness towards having difficulties for group discussion. This finding is consistent with studies on online learning difficulties by McVeigh 2000. Is there something you would like to say, Prof. Razia?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sharina. Forgive me, moderator, I interrupt a little about the argument given by Sharina just now. When it comes to communication activity that involve between student and instructor, also student with student in online learning, which in fact more fun and easy adapt by student and instructor. Statement from the community inquiry call model about 2008, Garrison, Anderson, and Archer, 2003. Instructor a better prepared instructor course, prepare material in lecture, explain syllabus, assignment, creating training, community, as well as supply test, grading, answer question, and so on. This challenge become even more prominent in the online activity as the class progress. Online class are more innovative in line with the latest technology, where today students are more sensitive and knowledge in handling online class. Students of the modern era are accustomed to the use detailed syllabus, electronic announcement, recording, and simulated video notes that are increasing easy for students to understand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Razia. Let's continue with Professor Safirul for the next argument.
Okay, let me come to my second point by agreeing on the topic, which is for my second point is the possibility of providing a world-class education. To hope that the online learning will be able to provide anyone, anywhere, and anytime as long as they have access the internet. By the giving example is allow students to participate in high-quality learning situation. When distance and schedule met on the ground, learning difficult to the impossible. And the second one is also can be creative teaching such as literature of education support to use interactive learning environment, such as example, virtual classroom make innovative and creative to be more important. And the third one is thus with the technology investment, educational online has become available, allowing option to business professional. Stay at home parent and additional to flexibility and access multiple other face value benefit, including program choice and time efficiency have increased to attractiveness of distance learning by this 2015.
Sorry to interrupt, but I'd like to say something about Professor Safirul's point. We need to remember that students from rural areas or poor regions may face difficulties with online learning due to lack of technology and the inability to purchase a laptop or a computer. Bear in mind, the basic requirements for online teaching and learning include hardware, software, and connectivity. Online learning cannot achieve its goal in the absence of any of these factors. Some people do not have easy access to a computer or an internet connection, and those who do have access to the necessary equipment feel unprepared to use it. According to Galusha 1991, has points out that technology's downsides include cost, hardware issues, internet problems, production of course materials, and worry about availability of funds. Researchers reveals that most of the educational institutions typically don't anticipate connectivity costs, which may later cause barriers to online learning.
Back to you, Dr. Hasnida. As you strongly disagree with our topic today, so what are the another factor that support your view?
Thank you again, Ms. Moderator. My second point why I disagree about online learning is effective is about the environment of the student. From a survey conducted by UNIZA, University Sultan Zainal Abidin, student which is had non-conductive environment at home affect focus during their online learning. We have to know that most of the students come from the low-income family backgrounds. They live in a small house with a small sibling, whereby some do not have their own rooms or private space for online learning space. They find that online learning cannot produce desired result in underdeveloped countries like Pakistan, where a vast majority of students are unable to access the internet due to technical as well as monetary issue. So they cannot give 100% attention in online classes. This finding is support in a research study by Adnan Muhammad in 2020. Thank you, Ms. Moderator. Back to you again.
Thank you, Dr. Hasnida. Due to our limit time, we had to stop here first. Before we close our forum today, what are the last words of all our panels? We start with Professor Safirul first.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Moderator. Before we start closing, as for my remark again, I totally disagree with Dr. Hasnida, but I totally agree with the Prof. Raja opinion for our topic today. Here are some of my points of view. The benefits that I can see from the student are able to learn faster during online. They can learn at their own space by rereading or skipping through the subject as they choose. Even though I know that I believe that this is one of the effective way of learning, but yes, there will be a pro and cons. It depends on the student to decide. But also there has a last one of my opinion conclusion to conclude the topic today. Back to Dr. Sharina.
Thank you, Prof. Safirul. I am extremely grateful for the opportunity to have participated in the discussions. Finally, I believe the digital roundtable discussion was particularly beneficial because it served as a model for the behaviors and practices we expect from our students and educators, which is taking risks, using technologies to facilitate dialogue and learning, and providing opportunities to discuss issues regarding to our topics today. There are always a pro and cons when it comes to implement the remote learning in the new norms. Hope for the continuous improvement on online learning education that can properly done for our future generation. For your information, I've attended a lot of educational conference and roundtables, and I've taken part in a number of live debates. I'd like to thank you everyone for your contributions to one of the most informative and well-researched discussion I've ever been a part of. I learned a great deal and have been left with much to think about. Thank you for that.
Okay. First of all, I thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to argue in this forum program. Of course, my opinion is to agree with the issue discussed today, as well as agree with Prof. Safirul. I see it in line with our current situation. So online learning is the most important platform where it's need to be implemented in every education institute so that our students do not drop out with the strong support technology. I'm sure in a little while we will all be competent with online education.
Okay, I agree with Dr. Sharina. With the challenges on online learning, university and school must look into the problem what we had discussed just a while and take necessary measures to avoid any student being left out. Online learning can actually be as effective as face-to-face education, but university and school need to upskill their staff and to delivery online education effectively and efficiently. In order to get the full benefit on online learning, a concerted effort is needed from many as to provide this structure and go beyond replicating a physical class or lecturer. That's all from me. Thank you for this discussion today.
Thanks to all the panels who volunteered to give their opinions today. See you again in the next forum next week.